Number 15, Captain Planet. The show formerly known as Captain Planet and the Planeteers was an animated series that ran from 1990 to 1996. The show features 5 teens that have been blessed with certain abilities who must work together to protect Earth from natural disasters and attacks. The second major villain to appear on the show was named Villainous Scum, and his name suited him quite well. Scum's most notorious act was done in the episode titled Mind Pollution, which dealt with the crushing issue of drug addiction. Even today, this issue seems a bit heavy for a children's show. Scum got Linka and her cousin Boris addicted to a drug called Bliss. Towards the end of the episode, right before being saved, Boris almost dies from an overdose.
Who wants more bliss? You get a whole bottle. And all you have to do is give those planet punks a little push.
Anything but give it to me now!
Here you go.
In this scene, bandages of some sort can be also seen on Boris's arm. This episode went down as one of the darkest in the series. Aside from a death on a children's show, which is usually frowned upon anyways, it was caused by a severely adult problem that most children might not fully grasp. Number 14, Dragon Ball Z. The imperfect Cell saga of the Dragon Ball Z series follows Cell through his attempts to gain power. The saga features a particularly disturbing episode where an innocent man is killed. Even despite the series' high action scenes full of violence and occasional bloodshed, there was something about this scene that was a little bit extra unsettling. Cell punctures the man and begins to absorb him. The man's face shows clear agony as he groans in pain, and there's a horrible gargling sound going on all the while. The man becomes thinner and thinner until he is just a mound of dead flesh lying on the ground. Number 13, My Life as a Teenage Robot. This show followed the life of a teenage robot who is struggling to keep the world safe and also manage to be a normal teenager. This idea of normality is emphasized in the episode Raggedy Android and the Return of Raggedy Android. In the first episode dealing with this exoskin Jenny, our main character wants to visit a town fair. However, her scientist mother fears that people of the town will be afraid of Jenny, so she creates this exoskin that's supposed to make Jenny appear as a normal human girl. This plan is a complete failure as the skin is more terrifying than the robot would be alone, and the town freaks out even more than her mother originally thought. The Raggedy Ann knockoffs is actually pretty creepy. The attire resembles something you'd find in the back of your great-grandmother's closet as you rummage through her home after her death. The follow-up episode is slightly more disturbing though. Jenny's mother has made some adjustments to the exoskin so that it actually serves its purpose in making Jenny not only normal, but very cute. Again though, things go horribly wrong when the suit gets a mind of its own and basically possesses Jenny. It forces her to disregard protecting her loved ones at the sake of staying pretty, and even attaches itself to her in her sleep. And if this idea isn't creepy enough, the voice of the Raggedy Android is smooth and creepy, like the narration of a horror novel, and the stitched line that works as the mouth is located on the back of Jenny's neck. This alludes to common horror themes where someone hears voices in the back of their head.
Don't we look beautiful?
I am beautiful, aren't I?
Yes, we are.
But this isn't the real me. The real me
Isn't beautiful?
No, I'm beautiful in my own special way.
But wouldn't we rather be beautiful in a normal way? Beauty is a 24-hour job. We can't just look like a normal girl. We have to behave like a normal girl. Believe we're a normal girl. A normal girl can do anything.
Number 12, Billy and Mandy. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy is a cult favorite that follows two siblings through their adventures with the oddly comical Grim Reaper. The show ran for 5 years from 2003 to 2008 and was packed full of otherworldly adventures through the living, the dead, and a couple stops in between. Despite this show including the Grim Reaper as a major character and regular visits from those living in the spirit world, one of the creepiest things to ever happen on the show didn't involve Grim nor his spirit friends. It was an isolated event that dealt with Billy's eyes. In episode 15, My Peeps, Billy damages his eyesight by looking directly at the sun and playing too many video games. He refuses to see a doctor of any kind, so Grim, fed up with his stubborn ways, zaps Billy's eyes with his synth. Things seem great when Billy has the best vision possible, but things get weird and creepy after that. He begins having glimpses of the future, and more specifically, glimpses of gruesome haunting things happening to his friends. He sees Irvin severely injured from a bike ride.
What are you screaming about, Billy?
Derwin, you! Are you okay?
Of course
Puddin gets fatally crushed by an elephant, and he even sees Mandy's decapitated head on the table. Grim makes the attempt to set his eyes back to normal by zapping them over and over again. By the end of it, Billy is lying on the floor with live-action eyes pasted onto his face. The concept of seeing your loved ones tragically die, in addition of the generally offsetting animation style of his eyes towards the end, this episode is pretty discomforting. Number 11, My Little Pony. This animated series has been running since 2010 and has gained a mass following of fans. All kinds of people aged 2 to 47 love the show. The internet has actually become a burial ground for the cute vibe the show gives off, and there is a ton of inappropriate and even terrifying fan-created content floating around Tumblr and DeviantArt. However, the show actually contains its very own real terrifying moments, terrifying for a kid's show that is. In the episode Party of One, Pinkie Pie, the most fun pony of them all, throws herself a huge birthday party. Things start to get weird though, when none of her friends can make it to her party and she begins to have a party all on her own. What starts off innocent enough with Pinkie Pie making inanimate objects talk as if they're alive, becomes much more darker when these objects really do talk on their own and convince her that her friends don't deserve to come to her parties anymore.
I'm just glad none of them ponies showed up. Oh, they're not so bad.
If I were you, I wouldn't speak to them ever again.
You know what? I'm not gonna speak to them ever again. And I'm not gonna invite them to another party as long as I live. They don't deserve to be invited to my parties. Not after the way they've been acting.
Pinkie enters a state of near belligerent rage as the piles of rocks and bags of flour laugh manically with her. Number 10, The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. This animated series that ran on Cartoon Network from 2008 to 2010 is actually very well known for its dark and rather disturbing humor. Nothing changes the fact that some things on the show would have meant pure nightmare fuel for an unsuspecting child. It's no news that nowadays parents don't monitor their children's TV watching like they used to, and a kid could plop themselves in front of the screen for an afternoon of imagination and instead be met with satanic characters, zombies, and ghost cats.
Oh, hey there, cutie. Aren't you beautiful? I think I know what you want. String! Oh. That sure was fun, huh, kitty?
Throughout all of the truly disturbing things to occur on Flapjack, the creepy cat has gone down as one of the tops. GIFs, vines, and much more have floated through the web since this episode's premiere, and no matter your age, it's a bit unsettling to think of this being shown on Cartoon Network. Though the cat might not be too scary to older viewers, consider the mind of a child and the way it could twist this into something in their own room at night. The episode titled Who Let the Cat Out of the Old Bag's House was the 44th episode in the final season, and it showed the cat falling from the ceiling. The regular illustration of the cat is not all that flattering to begin with, as it is gray and wrinkled, looking pretty lifeless already, but the close-up of the cat shows terrifying empty eye sockets and a rounded mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. It's also accompanied by an agonizing cat moan, which if you live in a neighborhood full of strays, you've probably heard before, and it's very unpleasant. Again, this scene was probably the cause of severe children running into their parents' rooms in the middle of the night. This was a pretty close runner for Pun Times with Punsy McHale, which features a deranged master of puns screaming into Flapjack's face as his face turns colors and his voice becomes increasingly more demonic.
I'm about to open a new chapter in Rhyme and Punishment. You think you're ready for my rhymes? You'll soon be green as envious limes. I see you're not yellow, fellow, but I don't want to make you blue. So get a clue and purple the plug before you played, or I'll arrange a rainbow on your parade.
The voice of this character as he shouts is indeed pretty disturbing. Yet another bit of nightmare enhancement for the kids that tuned in. Number 9, Adventure Time. The series that follows a human boy Finn and his magic dog Jake first aired in 2010. It has since risen to fame amongst many age groups, and there's a huge following of fan fiction writers. Adventure Time has been known to push the limits a few times in its series, with zombies and undertones of dirty jokes. However, it never seems to go as far off the path of what's appropriate for kids, except for this character, the Lich. The Lich is a demonic being, or possibly the mutant result of an atomic bomb, who has appeared in several episodes throughout the series. Though the fight scenes between the heroes and the ghoul are never too gruesome, the Lich as a character is pretty terrifying. His face is a skull exposed by torn away flesh. He has horns, glowing eye sockets, a huge stature, and a deep growling voice. Pretty much the last thing you'd want to fight in an underground subway. During one episode, Finn has a nightmare in which his friend Billy's face falls away to expose the horrible skull of the Lich. When it comes to terrifying cartoon characters, the Lich might not be number 1, but he's definitely up there. Add his creepy appearance to the idea that kids have imaginations that run wild and make simple things 10 times more terrifying, and this is literally a kid's worst nightmare. Kids have common fears about bad things happening to their loved ones, so the Lich is like a scary embodiment of that fear. He wants to destroy the universe and subsequently everything in it, including the parents and siblings of the viewers. Pretty messed up, right?
I will command a great and terrible army, and we will sail to 1 billion worlds. We will sail until every light has been extinguished. You are strong, child, but I am beyond strength.
Number 8, Tom and Jerry. This cat-mouse duo has been around since the 1940s and is a common household name today. The antics started out as short films that led to several spin-off series and shorts throughout the years. The cliché cat chasing mouse skits are a classic type of funny that captures children's attention as they don't have to keep up with confusing dialogue. This beloved animation that started as a simple form of entertainment for children took a dark turn at least once in its on-screen career. Blue Cat Blues was a Tom and Jerry short directed by William Hanna in 1956. The episode has its first dose for creepy as Tom narrates it in its entirety. It's a pretty common rule to not have Tom and Jerry speak during the shorts. However, since it was a narration, the rule is still followed because Tom is not physically speaking. He narrates the story of how his girlfriend left him for a richer and more attractive cat, and despite Tom's effort, he was unable to win her back. Through the episode, the same thing happens to Jerry, and the duo is left in a state of depression. Jerry joins Tom on railroad tracks, and the scene ends with the two looking solemnly towards the ground as the train can be heard drawing closer to the pair. This was, of course, implying suicide. There's a rumor that claims this was the last short of Tom and Jerry ever made, aside from the spin-off series, but there were actually several more shorts created after this one. Because of the dark and heavy nature of this short, It has very rarely been aired on American TV, but was aired many times in other countries and regions, and slipped through the cracks once on TNT and Cartoon Network in the early 90s, but producers for the channel likely realized their mistake and it was not aired again. Number 7. Steven Universe. This heartwarming series first made its way onto the airwaves in November 2013 and has already taken off quite well. There's a huge fan base ranging in ages, and the gems from the show are the target for several cosplayers. The show is filled with strange monsters, magical lands, and a very spunky young boy, so things don't get out of hand too often. However, there's one particular character that struck fear into several viewers. A nearby concession known for its fries is owned by Mr. Fryman and his 2 sons. One day, his younger son is wearing the mascot Frybo costume. Steven sets things into a whirl when he uses a magical gem to bring the mascot suit to life, and the creature begins terrorizing people of the city and forcing them to eat fries.
Please, no more fries! Frybo, stop!
Where's all this coming from? I get it. I pushed you too hard.
Dad! No!
There's a demonic possession / zombie feel to this living costume that makes it pretty terrifying. Rybo's huge fake smile, reddened eyes, and pure violent nature is something out of a classic horror movie. At one point in the episode, Frybo is stabbed in the eye, he bleeds ketchup and falls to the ground. While the general is playful with only a hint of intended horror, the actual episode is pretty trippy and scary. You just wouldn't expect something on this show to get so dark. Number 6. The Powerpuff Girls. What kind of list would this be without Him, the flamboyant and disturbing depiction of the devil from a children's show about little girls who save their town? Him is a red-skinned demon that could very possibly be the devil himself, who has giant claws for hands, big black eyes, and a truly haunting voice. Although Him is not very scary in appearance, his constantly echoing voice and general creepy aura is enough to freak every viewer of the past decade out a little. An especially freaky scene of Him was in the episode Tough Love, where he uses his powers to make the people of Townsville hate the Powerpuff Girls. Him is in the tub enjoying a hot bath while basking in the idea of no one liking the girls anymore. He is mocking the town with his haunting voice when he begins talking to a small rubber duck. He goes on a rant about hating the girls, and as he does, his voice gets deeper and more eerie.
You hate them too? Oh, I knew I could count on you. But how could I possibly beat them with all that love surrounding them? What's that you say? Yes! That's brilliant! Oh, Mr. Crackers, you are so quite a positively evil scheme you've hatched, and I'll finally be rid of those girls forever!
With his voice dropping an octave here and there, there's also strange musical sounds in the background that resemble sound bits from a modern horror movie like Insidious that give a review of the scene an even more blood-curdling air. Number 5. Sesame Street. This educational kids show has been on the air since the late 1960s, so it's a show that parents can share with their children and even grandchildren. Through the years, there have been some controversial clips here and there, but for the most part, Sesame Street has strayed away from anything too damaging to young minds, as it aims to help those minds grow, not to hurt them. This clip was most likely not intended to be as scary as it is, but it came out to be something quite chilling over the years since its release. A short playful clip during the show that aimed to help children learn to count wound up being a heavy dose for bad dreams for kids everywhere.
Now then, a count of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10. Once again, let's count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Watch the screen and we will try to count how many dots go by. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10.
Even today, people that see this clip can feel something rather off about it. It's uncertain when the clip originally aired, but it features a rubber band face that's voiced by an older man who likely lives in a mansion with 13 ghosts. Strange noises as the numbers fly by, with even weirder noises in the background, and a pretty much otherwise black screen. There have been many altered versions of the counting skit throughout Sesame Street's years on air, and a vast majority of them are almost as creepy as this one, such as a similar bit with African masks in relation to the numbers. Maybe there's some psychology behind scaring kids into learning. Number 4, Hey Arnold. This classic 90s cartoon about a football head boy and his gang of friends was often a very calm type of comedy that never seemed to upset or outrage its viewers. However, this clip from the episode Part-Time Friends was enough to at least give them shivers. The episode features Arnold and his best friend Harold getting a part-time job at a flower shop, but they end up in a bit of a dispute and aren't friends. Arnold has a bad dream about him and Harold well into their 70s still fighting about the silly issue. They're sitting on a bus and the camera pans back to show Arnold's grandpa mocking the two. He's either on the brink of death or has been dead for quite some time as his appearance is pretty lifeless. His eyes are sunken into the point of him almost having empty sockets, and he's about 2 steps away from being a pile of bones. In a very fragile and ghostly voice, his grandpa says,
What did I tell you, short granny?
Number 3, Cat Dog. This 90s classic was about 2 brothers that were a cat and a dog and somehow shared a body. It first premiered in 1998 and is still a fan favorite today. In this particular episode, Teeth for Two, they find out that the dental hygiene of one will affect the other's teeth. Dog, of course, has horrible habits as far as eating and brushing his teeth go, though Cat tries his best to get Dog to take better care of his mouth. Dog does not oblige, and Cat becomes very desperate. In the middle of the night when the pair is sleeping, Cat somehow reverses himself and comes out of Dog's mouth as a mass of muscle and flesh. It's a pretty terrifying image, even with the context. It's a very gory scene, even for the standards of 90s cartoons. And to imagine waking up to something like that in the middle of the night if you didn't take better care of your teeth, pretty unsettling all around. Number 2, Ren and Stimpy. This sometimes too adult animated series followed the daily lives of Ren Hoek, a small and slightly demented chihuahua, and Stimpton, J-Cat, a simple-minded cat known as Stimpy for short. The show made its premiere in 1991 and stayed on air until its cancellation in 1996. There were several moments in the show that were a little controversial as they were seen as too dark or too sexual for children. Among those many famous clips, The most disturbing of them has to be when Ren goes on a murderous rant. In the episode Sven Hoek, the episode features Ren's cousin Sven coming to visit the pair, but he turns out to be just as stupid as Stimpy, and this immediately annoys Ren. One day on his visit, after Ren is already close to fed up with his and Stimpy's antics, Ren heads to work. When he comes home, he finds the house nearly destroyed, with all of his personal possessions tampered with, and even broken. In a fit of frustration, he goes on a tangent where he explains what exactly he's going to do to them. This rant includes Ren saying,
First, I'm gonna tear your lips out. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And then, I'm gonna gouge your eyes out. Next, I'm gonna tear your eyes out of the sockets. And you wanna know what else? I'm gonna hit you, and you're gonna fall. And I'm gonna look down, and I'm gonna laugh. First, I gotta take a whiz.
This isn't the first time Ren has spoken of murder. In fact, there's an equally creepy scene where he stays up all night planning to kill Stimpy, but the language in this one is much more blatant and detailed. Number 1, Courage the Cowardly Dog. If there's a place on a disturbing cartoon list, Courage will always take first place. This dark comedy cartoon actually had a short run from 1999 to 2002, but that was plenty of time for this generation of kids to be scarred for life. Ask anyone in this age group and they're sure to tell you that Courage freaked them out as a kid, and still might today. There are numerous terrifying episodes and characters in this series, such as the episode The Mask, which features a ghostly woman wearing a painted mask, forcing Courage to help her friend who is in an abusive relationship. Or the episode Freaky Fred, which features the creepy barber with a huge crooked smile and an unsettling theme song. Everyone who is an avid viewer of the show will have their own opinion on the scariest character, but the one that has to take the cake is from the episode titled Perfect. Courage is constantly making mistakes when a teacher approaches him. She is the embodiment of Courage's own insecurities and does her best to teach him to be the perfect dog, but of course things go way off track, and Courage learns the valuable lesson that there's no such thing as perfect. Of course though, as tradition in this series, Courage is lying in bed when he starts to doze off and sees this ghostly CGI character floating in place saying, "You're not perfect. This character is most likely an embodiment of everyone's self-doubt. The animation is disturbing in the way it moves and in the things it says, but its voice has the power to haunt you for about 20 years or more. Got an idea for a top 15 video? Be sure to submit it at top15s.net/submit. Be sure to subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching.